Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics. In this video, I'd like to talk how Boris Johnson, the leader of the party of fiscal responsibility, has just thrown away £7 billion of our money. And not due to incompetence, but just out of pure spite, it seems. But first, if you find yourself enjoying the video, then please click the like button and subscribe to the channel. So this is the point, I suppose, about needing time to properly scrutinise things in Parliament before committing the country to decades of major change. When Boris Johnson released his new withdrawal agreement and tried to get the bill bounced through Parliament in just a few days, he was hoping that we wouldn't take time to discuss not just the obvious bones of contention, but maybe a few more hidden ones. He has agreed to have a border inside the UK. He has removed the guarantees to protect minimum standards of human rights and environmental standards from the legal text, meaning they can be thrown on the bonfire as soon as he or any future Tory leader at any time gets a majority in the House of Commons. He also expects Parliament to vote the government extraordinary powers to take us out of the agreement's transition period without a deal if he claims he can't get his unicorns. But one thing that escaped attention, and there may be others as well, for a few days at least, was reported in the Times this weekend. So, back in 1973, the UK invested in the European Investment Bank. Our share of the reserves is now apparently £7 billion. Upon leaving the EU, we would withdraw this, or I suppose more realistically, offset it against what we owe the EU in terms of their money in our own banks. And £7 billion represents a big chunk of that so-called divorce settlement that Brexiteers are always moaning about, even though it's as a result of their actions. But Boris Johnson, as part of his new withdrawal agreement, has agreed to let the EU keep our profits. We still get back our original stake, but we lose the profits and interest, which actually are much more than the original stake. It's just been given away. And try and bear in mind what this is. This isn't Boris Johnson's money. This isn't a private deal between two people where either side can forfeit what it wants to get the deal it wants. This is British taxpayers' money. If you're a UK citizen paying tax to Her Majesty's Treasury, this is your money that he's given away. So while he's getting ready to remove all our employment rights, making it more difficult for us to make money, and taking the country backwards on green issues, making it more difficult for our children and grandchildren to live, he's also given away billions of pounds of our money. And I thought it was bad enough when he was wasting public money, say the £100 million of public money, for what was essentially a party political campaign, or wasting over £10 million of our money on commemorative Brexit coins that now have to be destroyed because, well, they had October the 31st on. Or the billions of pounds that both his and Theresa May's government have spent on no-deal preparations, when the only way we'd ever get a no-deal scenario is if the British government deliberately took us out on those terms. The EU don't want no deal. The UK Parliament doesn't want no deal. There's no way that the British public would vote for no deal. So there's no way for a no-deal Brexit to actually happen by accident. It can only happen due to a deliberate act on the part of our government. So although it was sensible for other EU countries to put in no-deal preparations because it was largely out of their hands, it wasn't out of ours. Any money we spent on no-deal preparations isn't being responsible. It's being irresponsible because we should never put ourselves in a position where that can happen. But all of that money wasted, which is a stunning example of just how little Conservatives care about money that isn't theirs, or the nation's finances, is still more than handsomely beaten by this single act of capitulation on the part of Boris Johnson. And I called his deal the surrender deal the week before last, as did many others. But this really is much more than I thought. I meant it as a surrender to all parties, but I meant it most especially as a surrender to Parliament in Westminster. This is a straight-up surrender to the EU. And this is exactly the sort of thing that needs to get out to the public, because think carefully about what this means. As volatile as Johnson is, I can't believe he simply surrendered the £7 billion on a whim. They didn't just come in and say, oh, about that £7 billion you've got. Oh, have we got £7 billion? Yeah. Can we have it? Oh, yeah, sure. No. The EU must have convinced him to do it in order to get the agreement he so desperately needed. The Brexit Party have tried saying that having the money in the European banks means that we have liabilities should there be a Eurozone crisis. But I don't think that holds water for three reasons. I mean, I'm no banking expert, but there has already been a Eurozone crisis. I remember it. And the UK had no involvement and was not expected to have anything to do with sorting it out. Also, upon leaving the EU, we'd withdraw our stake, along with any interest and profits anyway. Nobody was suggesting we'd leave it there, so the argument is doubly nonsense as far as I can see. And the third thing is, obviously, if you're going to withdraw the money from the bank anyway, you would withdraw all of it. This thing about the Brexit Party saying, oh, well, keeping it in there, as if the only way to get it out is to forego the profits. No, that's not how it works. No, this is just Boris Johnson surrendering a massive amount of our money. And think about what this tells us. It's more than just £7 billion wasted. It tells us that Boris Johnson will give away the crown jewels if asked by any future trade negotiators. To give up so much money, for which there is no disputed claim, it is the UK's, and not even offset against what we owe. I mean, surely he could say, well, we'll leave that there, but then we'll just take it off what we owe you. Not even that. Is just giving up the UK's interest without a fight. And it purely because he was desperate. I cannot believe there are still people who think that Britain can negotiate better trade deals alone. Because the reality is here, right here, laid bare. We've already been rebuffed by lots of countries around the world on the issue of future trading potential. They've all told us when the negotiations start we won't be getting a better deal. Precious few are even keen on one that's as good as we have now. They're all seeing a desperate island that will accept any terms. And you can bet your arse that if I've read this report into Johnson's massive surrender, that so too has the world. They already knew that Britain would be desperate after Brexit, especially a no-deal Brexit. In general terms, that makes us a soft touch. But now they know how easy it will be. They can just drop the terms on the table and tell us, well, that's it, take it or leave it, knowing that Boris Johnson will sign anything that is put in front of him, as long as the front page says, totally great trade deal for Britain and for Britain's people. He'll sign anything. And with opposition MPs, including the Lib Dems and the SNP, seemingly now willing to risk letting Boris Johnson have a majority, that future has never seemed more certain. It was worrying when Johnson was trying to illegally bypass Parliament to get his no-deal Brexit. But we sort of believed that we had systems in place to stop it. But the fact that he may be able to do it via a lifeline from the opposition benches, that's a real concern. The worry previously was Labour rebels going along with this and Corbyn allowing them to do so. Now we've got even more problems. So it looks like we're going to have another crucial week ahead of us. The EU have agreed to the January extension, but I want to see the dust settle for a few hours before offering my thoughts on that, because there's a lot of speculation I've got going around my head that could easily be answered by a few politicians saying a few things. But if this means a general election is triggered this week, then it is panic stations and what may be a monumental battle for future of Britain in just a few weeks. Incidentally, if you're thinking of reading the article yourself in the Times, do beware that it does have a sort of paywall. You can actually sign up for free and read 2 articles a week, I think, but just be warned there. So I hope you found the video interesting. If you'd like to support the channel further, then please click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.